All right, we're on.
Great.
All right. How we doing today? Not on?
Not here.
Let's try it again. Can you hear us now? There you go. All right, I'm Mike Anderer here with John Salshell. We are Blue City Radio. We are actually here for City Post Game Live, and we appreciate you guys all coming down to Wolf's Beer Garden. And John, what a mess.
Yeah, well, first I'd like to thank Mike for coming up to the 518, spending time in Albany, New York, the capital of the great state of New York, and spending time at Wolf's Beer Garden to watch NYCFC do poorly, really poorly. Really, really poorly. I actually have no good words to say here. It was ugly. Partially because Giovinco's a freak, partially because Andrea Pirlo probably shouldn't be starting, and partially because the referee is an idiot.
I don't know that Chris Penso had as much to do with the outcome of this game as much as Patrick Vieira did in his choices. And I think this is one of those situations that always comes down to did the players perform as well as they expected, as well as Vieira expected? Because I think that was the biggest problem. Is I think Vieira had a game plan and it just didn't get executed the way he wanted.
Yeah, but the game plan was always questionable. If you're on the road, you're missing key players, and the idea of starting Andrea Pirlo in midfield, you're probably not going to see a lot of the ball. Can he hold up defensively? And it was as much as NYCFC kind of held Toronto at bay through some last-ditch defending. I thought Alexander Callens had a really good game, a terrible call notwithstanding. Pirlo was always prone to breaking down, and you saw it pretty clearly on the first goal. He gave Giovinco all the space, even though he got him on his wrong foot. It's still Giovinco. Giovinco on his left foot is better than most players on their primary foot. And Pirlo basically gave him all the space in the world and didn't even try to close him down.
You heard Brian Dunseth say it in the call. He put Giovinco to his left, which was the right move. The problem was I think he just opened up and didn't for a goal. So it gave Giovinco a full view of Sean Johnson with his left foot.
Yeah, well, Pirlo gave him the left, and Callens. It looks like Callens was not expecting Giovinco to have that much space. Like he was expecting his midfielder to maybe defend Giovinco. I know it's a crazy thought, but you look at Callens, like suddenly he has this look on his face, like, oh, I have to close him out now. Where did this come from? And that's part of the problem. Is while it's still a great goal, and it's not Pirlo's fault on its own for the goal, Giovinco still had to do the work. You know, Pirlo gave him a really clean look at goal, and he hung out his center back to dry a little bit.
So got a great crowd out here. If you guys have any questions or comments, by all means, let us know. We did get one comment already on Facebook. You do not call Albany the 518. Apparently that is...
Sorry, I live here. Yeah, I do. My show today, I get to call whatever I want.
But 32nd minute is when Giovinco scores that first goal. Before that goal was scored, did you think NYCFC was competing at the same level as Toronto? Because I didn't get that sense. I think this was a mess of a game right from the beginning.
It was a messy lineup. I thought they had done a pretty good job up until that point, at least holding Toronto back. It wasn't like Toronto was beating down Sean Johnson's goal. It wasn't like Toronto had tons of shots and it was just holding on for dear life. I don't think we did much in attack in the first half. I think we commented about halfway through, like 30 minutes in, David Villa had like 3 touches at that point. But I also thought defensively we were fine. You know, the game seemed to be played mostly in the midfield between the two boxes. It wasn't a lot of penetration from either side, and I was fine with that. I mean, if you're NYCFC and if you were able to get into halftime at 0-0, second half you can make some changes, you can do some things differently. I think you'd been fine with that. You know, Pirlo doesn't close out, Giovinco does Giovinco things, and suddenly it's 1-0 and the game changes. And I think that it seemed to me that Vieira's game plan was to try to get it to 0-0 at the half and then adjust from there. And unfortunately, we couldn't get to that point.
No, couldn't get to that point. We also were questioning, was Andrea Pirlo the right replacement for Yangel Herrera?
No. I mean, there's certainly not a like-for-like replacement. I also, looking at that lineup, I don't know who the backup central midfielder is. I mean, if you're playing McNamara on the left wing, Pirlo's in the lineup, who's your center midfielder? We've talked about it. Mikey Lopez has been training at right back lately, so he's not even training as a midfielder anymore. I don't even know who the midfielder is on that roster and on the 18. Like, who do you bring in? I mean, they brought in Kwame Rua later on. I guess he's a center midfielder, though he can play multiple positions, and if that's the guy who's your backup center mid for the game, you got issues.
Well, especially because you got to look at a guy like Alexander Ring, and we talked about it. This is the second game he's gone without a yellow. Knock on wood, one more game, and he gets one of those yellows erased. But that's going to be a game next weekend against the Red Bulls. But you know that this team is going to have to deal with injuries and suspensions.
Yeah, the depth on this team is pretty good, but it's not as good as it could be. And really the amount of injuries they've had, and actually the sort of the key players that have gotten injured has been tough. I mean, you really missed Herrera with suspension. You really miss Rodney Wallace today. You talk about Alexander Ring. He's been really good, and I thought he had a good game. To think he's going to get through a Red Bulls game next Sunday night at Yankee Stadium without another yellow card is hard to believe. I would just assume he's going to go cleats up on somebody in the 5th minute just out of anger.
So, any of you guys out there have thoughts on who should have played midfield instead of Andrea Pirlo?
Wow, it's a vote for me. I mean, that's impressive, but my back hurts, so that's a big ask. I'm 36. Like, that's a big ask for me. Though I am younger than Pirlo.
I do think that that Pirlo was the right choice, but I think it's the way that NYCFC started with him. He could have been. We were expecting, and we talked about this pregame, that we were expecting Pirlo to play higher up. And at one point they mentioned, it was about the 6th minute, Brian Dunst has mentioned on the broadcast, that Pirlo was actually dropping back between the center backs because they had gotten so disconnected by the runs of the Toronto offense. And I think that's the question that I wonder, the personality or the personnel. Vieira has to set up a game plan that fits the people that he has on the field. And I don't think that's what he did. I think he kind of figured that he could play the same game plan he normally does, and just swap out these players, and that it just didn't work.
No, I mean, we saw the lineup, and I know a few people and reporters who cover the team had tweeted it. Pirlo sitting as the deeper midfielder, this was going to be a problem, and Matthew Doyle, who I know has his detractors on the NYCFC forums, but I think he tweeted out, "This seems like a mistake," and he was right. It was a mistake. That lineup was never going to work with that game plan. You're putting Pirlo in a situation when you have to have too many players cover for him. I know about a game. They never played it. I can't imagine that Toronto's coaching staff didn't see this one coming.
The the other question you have to ask yourself, so you had the substitution, or I mean, you had to make the switch with replacing Tommy McNamara up on the left, Andrea Pirlo, the fullbacks, because there was a couple of times where Ethan White had opportunities to get into the attack, get forward. He had a very good late opportunity with a pass off from David Villa, but Ethan White, if he's your attacking threat, you're not going to win a game.
No, I mean, he's done a decent job being a right back this year, but that's obviously not ideal. And I think we sort of touched upon it. David Villa was really quiet today. He had some chances in the second half. He had a really good opportunity in the second half that he just couldn't quite get the shot off. But, the players that you would expect to see in attack, the players that you want to get on the ball in the final third, weren't getting on the ball. I mean, Maxi Morales was quiet. Credit does go to Toronto. I thought they had a really good game defensively. I think they took advantage of maybe a suspect NYCFC game plan / lineup selection, and they really took NYCFC's key players out of the game. I don't think this is, and Brian Dunsett mentioned it towards the end. The scoreline was slightly flattering to Toronto. I mean, Giovinco had a great goal in the first half. Second half, for the first bit of that, we were just I think we were even with them, and we had a couple chances. And if we bury one of those, it's a whole different ball game. And then Giovinco gets that free kick, and that was obscene. I mean, that goal is obscene. He's a great player, and yeah, you can't give him a free kick in that area, but he still buried it where Sean Johnson had no chance, absolutely no chance. And at that point, it's game over. But at 1-0, NYCFC was still in that game and still created opportunities and looked like they had something in them.
So let's talk about that play. 67th minute. Guys, you're 1-0 against the number one team in the East at halftime. Are you okay with that scoreline? I'm getting a lot of
some slow nods, some sort of yeses.
I guess after you realize the result was 4-0, but at 1-0, you kind of felt like this was a game that NYCFC could win because neither team was playing great. And yeah, to the extent NYCFC was still in it.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they had chances. Villa had that one chance coming in off the left wing, and on another day maybe he gets that shot off a split second quicker, and it's a goal, and it's 1-1. We had a couple set piece opportunities that we didn't do enough with, particularly a corner where we played it short, and then back to Pirlo, who then kicked it out of bounds himself. I don't know what that was, but I mean there were chances there to be had, and at 1-0 you're feeling like there's still something happening. Jonathan Lewis comes in the game. He's obviously athletic. Things can happen. And then Giovinco, you give him a free kick, and he does something spectacular. Sean Johnson had no chance at that goal. None. Zero. Nothing he could do. And people here are shaking their heads in agreement. It's just nothing. Sean Johnson's 6'3". He laid out. There is no way he gets that ball. And it's all on Giovinco just being special, a special player. There's a lot of them in the league now, and he's certainly near the top.
Well, one of the substitution choices that Vieira had to make was whether or not he was going to start Jonathan Lewis. And Jonathan Lewis played very well last week against Chicago. He didn't say that he did enough in that performance to secure a starting spot, but you have to think that he was in contention, and you have to wonder what Vieira was expecting to see out of Tommy McNamara that would keep Jonathan Lewis off the starting 11, because when Jonathan Lewis came in, yes, he made that foul on Giovinco. That was a lot of the calls are going to be those could have gone either way types of calls. The PK that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, being one of the biggest examples.
That'll be a fun talk.
But I think Jonathan Lewis did a lot of the right things and was physical and was. You expect your substitutions to make a difference in the game, and that's exactly what Lewis did. And if you want to talk about the other play with Lewis, it was the fact that a Delgado from Toronto, he gets fouled by Lewis, and as he's going down, he kicks out at Lewis's leg, and he's lucky he didn't catch Lewis with the studs because that would have been a straight red.
Yeah, 100% would have been, and it's sort of another moment in a game that really turned on just a couple key moments. Vieira gives Giovinco space. He buries that goal on his left foot. Lewis, there's this foul, but, there was inches away from being a potential red card, too. 4-0 is frustrating. I don't think it's 100% fair, considering it's like an NYCFC almost B team in some respects. This game really could have been a lot different. Delgado, good player, he sometimes is prone to these fits of over-exuberance, is how I'll put it. That could have been game-changing. I mean, if you're Greg Vanney, you're wondering, what are you doing? That's a risk you can't take at all. But it ended up working out for Toronto, and they were the better team. They deserved to win, but they weren't a juggernaut. I refuse to sit here and believe that they're this juggernaut that can't be beaten and 4-0 and oh my God. This was not like the playoffs last year. This was not like sitting at Yankee Stadium last fall when we got handled thoroughly and easily, and every step of the way you could just see it coming. This felt like a weakened NYCFC team that battled hard and key moments just didn't go their way. Partially of their own mistake, partially out of some luck, partially out of the fates of the gods. The question from Mike Allen on Twitter: how much better does this make the draw that we experienced in Yankee Stadium a couple of weeks ago? How much better do you feel about NYCFC and their ability to draw Toronto at home after going into their home and getting losing 4-0? It doesn't change a lot for me. I also just don't think this says a lot about NYCFC. This is not their full team. I'd be curious to get Toronto at full strength. To me, that's what I'm looking forward to. We get Toronto at full strength. We can play with them. I have no doubt. That point at home was good. A point's always good. That win against Chicago was great. Now in hindsight, that was really important. This one stung, but I don't think differently about that home game in hindsight. I would just like to see these teams play at full strength. I think we can match them at, best 11 versus best 11. If we're missing a couple key players, I think I'm desperately concerned unless we add somebody in the transfer window.
So Joe Amato from Dudes in Blue is on Facebook saying that he just doesn't know what to say. He's so upset he can't even tweet. And Patrick Rivera says, look, the biggest problem with this game is no Yangel Herrera. And I have to disagree because I don't think Herrera, his presence was going to be enough to turn this game around.
Well, I don't think that first goal happens if Herrera's on the field, right? So at that point, we're already sort of positing a future of this game with Herrera on the field. That first goal doesn't happen, then it's 0-0 at worst going into halftime. I do think it makes a difference. I think the midfield is the key to NYCFC. I think it's the key to most teams. But I definitely think it's the key to how NYCFC play. And the midfield did not match – the players did not match the game plan that Vieira wanted to execute. Herrera on there would have made a huge difference.
So let's do this. We're going to bring up a guest. We're going to bring up Sam from Wolf's Beer Garden. So he's going to jump in my seat. So you can introduce Sam and –
round of applause, Sam.
Sorry, I missed a little bit of that. How's it going?
All right, we got Sam here from Wolf's Beer Garden. He already got a round of applause. Let's give him another round of applause. And thanks to Wolf's Beer Garden. Thanks to Sam for today. We desperately appreciate it. Anybody who's come here regularly knows Sam. I've been here plenty of times. I know Sam well. And Sam does a few things on his own. So, Sam, why don't you tell us about what you're doing?
First and foremost, I manage this bar. It's the number 2 soccer bar in the country, according to SiriusXM. We hold big events here, like the last 2 World Cups have been here. We've shut down the street. American Outlaws Bar, come here. We've just partnered up with NYCFC, and we show all the games here, and we generate a pretty good crowd here for the local team, shall we say.
Yeah, as local as we can get until Albany gets a team of their own. But they'll be the local big-time professional team. And yeah, I mean, I can tell you from experience, as Mike's not local, but I am local to the area, and I've been here more times than I can count for many occasions, and it is a good time. They're great people, great atmosphere, great food. Just everything's really good here, and
Thanks,
we
buddy.
really thank you. We really appreciate your support of the game and of the community, and it does mean a lot to everybody in the area, and NYCFC to even have a sort of a presence up in the Capital District is great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about? I know you do some stuff with some podcasting on the side as well, which seems to be a thing nowadays. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so, I mean, I always hang out with my friends at home and we just talk about football, soccer, as you like to say here. And, we just got talking about 6 months ago. And we were like, why don't we start a podcast? We tried one out over the 2014 World Cup, and just with our scheduling and kind of hecticness, I have a kid. But 3 of us got together and we thought we might have something here. So we got a graphic designer to do a logo for us. We figured out how to produce it, edit it, and we kind of had a platform. We, first few episodes were kind of rough. We were just warming up to it, but we gained momentum throughout last season, the Premier League. And now we're focusing more on the MLS. I think there's a gap in the market there to kind of promote this league that's growing rapidly. And, with NYCFC, with more teams coming into the MLS, and kind of bringing the fun side to the league, because it's still not as serious as you guys would like it to be. And the rate that it's growing and the potential it has, there's a huge gap in the market, and we're trying to focus on that and bring coolness back in, into the league, which I think is lacking.
I totally agree. I think it definitely is a growing league. I think you can see that sort of every year it grows a little bit more, and to have more people talking about it's a real positive thing. Mike?
So relative to this game, this game was kind of billed as a matchup between David Villa and Sebastian Giovinco. Obviously, we talked about Villa not getting as many touches as NYCFC would want him to. But is that a fair statement to say that this was a game where Giovinco is shown as a superstar and Villa kind of flew under the radar?
I don't know about that, because I've been to a few NYCFC games this year, and I've seen David Villa step up to the plate. He's still, one of the top goal scorers in the league right now. Giovinco is starting to gain momentum. I just think with the injuries and, Herrera being suspended this game, and plus, I think the lack of diversity in Vieira's tactics for this game, it didn't plan out. He's very stubborn, Patrick Vieira, and why weren't the wingers used more in this game if you're lacking someone in midfield like Herrera? But I just think Toronto are that good of a team. they're undefeated at home. They're that good of a team that they can control games, when they want. And having Bradley and Altidore back, coming back from the Gold Cup, you would think they would be a little bit tired, but I thought Bradley can really sit on the halfway line and let Giovinco do his thing, do his free roll. That was a Giovinco masterclass. As much as Pirlo was lazy on that first goal, I don't know if Herrera could have even stopped that. It was, I don't know. I think it was just a masterclass from Giovinco. I don't think many other midfielders in the league could have stopped him today.
Yeah, to an extent, I think that's a fair point. For as much as we're sort of knocking on Pirlo, and I feel like that's what I'm doing today, and he probably could have closed out better there, that goal is absurd. And Giovinco was insane today. He's fantastic. He's utterly fantastic.
Mike, I'm not an NYCFC fan, full-blooded, but I went to the playoff game last season when Giovinco really turned it on, and it was 4-0 after 20 minutes. How close are your club to Toronto, or do you think there's still a huge gap?
That it took 88 minutes for them to score 4. I guess that's a positive, right?
Sure, in that sense, it's an improvement. And we tied them a couple weeks ago at home. So
turn the camera.
Oh, we got a question from the crowd.
Yep. Can you turn that camera for me? We got Alex. No, just spin it. Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Coming off a 4-0 loss, how do you feel that will change the outcome of next week's Red Ball game?
Oh, God.
Yeah, does this game have an impact? Because you'll have Herrera back, but is that enough? You're still going to be probably without Rodney Wallace.
From my standpoint, having Herrera back is key. I think we saw it at Red Bull Arena last month or whenever they played. I can't remember anymore. How much of an impact he has on the game. He completely took Sean Davis out of that game. His presence was his physicality, his athleticism, his tenaciousness really changed the way that game was handled. I think you see an NYCFC team that tends to bounce back from tough games fairly well. They don't. This year they don't go on big losing streaks.
What about the Red Bulls coming off like a 4-0 win as well?
Yeah, well, Red Bulls are coming off of a big win too. So do they get complacent? Who knows? I thought I feel pretty good about it. I think we can play with the Red Bulls. I think we're not a team that is going to pile loss after loss after loss for the most part. So I feel decent, but I'll ask Sam sort of from your thoughts. What do you think going into next week, looking at that game from your perspective?
I mean, Herrera's coming back. It's at home as well, the game.
Yeah.
So that plays a huge advantage to, NYCFC. At home, they're a lot better. They adapt their game a lot better. But concerning psychological, coming off a 4-0 defeat and then playing against someone, a team who's on form, coming off a 4-0 win against Montreal. So that definitely plays a factor. But it's a derby, and there's a lot of energy that put into these games. And NYCFC recently have come on top. They got a good win in New Jersey in the reverse fixture.
Yeah, that's right, New Jersey.
So I feel that they're favourite. I mean, they're still third in the conference. I don't think they should worry too much about this game. There's definitely a gulf between Toronto and NYCFC, and Patrick Vieira really needs to figure out that, soon, coming into the playoffs. But, local derby, I don't think they have to worry about what's happened just now, but, focus on the next game and, at home and try and get the 3 points.
So we got a question from Tim out here, so.
With Pirlo's performance today and him showing his lack of defensive ability with this stage of his career, is this the last time we see him in the starting lineup?
Good question. No, I don't think it is. Partially maybe because we don't have a lot of other options. I think partially because he can still do a job against certain teams. I just think it was a tough ask to go into Toronto against a basically fully fit Toronto team and put in the midday summer heat and put Pirlo in that midfield and ask him to do a job. I think against different teams, maybe at home, different weather conditions, various other factors, Pirlo can definitely still do things and help this team in positive ways. He'll start again, but I really hope it's not on the road against a major opponent in the middle of the day in July. Well, it can't be in July anymore, but in August either.
I mean, I'm a huge Pirlo fan, huge. Loved him at Juventus. I loved him throughout his career. He, only 2-3 years ago, he played against England in the Euro Championships, and it was, he was unlike any other player I've seen. But I think his days are definitely numbered. I'm going to agree with you. I feel like Patrick Vieira has to use him because of the lack of options that the team has. But he's very inconsistent right now. I mean, I went down to Orlando for the first game of the year. Even though they lost the game 1-0, Pirlo was the best player on the field. He had that space, he had the awareness. But, up against, a Bradley and Javinko midfield, Pirlo these days at 37, 38 years old, he's just not going to control the game like he used to. So, yeah, I mean, he'll probably start again, but he'll be limited, definitely, yeah.
I guess the question you have to consider is what opponent Pirlo would do well, against. Because obviously Toronto being first in the East, actually being first in the Supporters' Shield, that's going to be a tough ask. But what other – there's no give-me games in the MLS.
No, I mean, I don't want to disrespect any other team in the MLS, It's very, bottom of the Western Conference can beat top of the Eastern Conference. It's happened. The record at the end of the season isn't really a team running away with the title. You get so many teams qualified for the playoffs. I mean, I don't really know who the worst team in the MLS is right now. I mean, you can pick
Minnesota, but they had a nice win yesterday too. So
Stop picking on Minnesota.
I love their jerseys. The Loons, are you kidding me? They're dope. But they probably are the weakest team in MLS, and we've seen that they can score goals still.
So Patrick Vieira subs out Andrea Pirlo, brings on Ugo Okoli. Subs out David Villa, brings on Kwame Awuah. But in either situation, John, we were watching the game together. I didn't notice either substitution.
No, I noticed the Pirlo one because they at least put a graphic up on ESPN on the screen. I didn't notice the Villa substitution at all. I assume it happened right when the Altidore substitution happened after the penalty.
Is that a tactic by ESPN to make sure people don't tune off and just think that the players are still playing?
I have comments about ESPN. I'll probably let those lie for another day, but it was odd that it wasn't shown. There was no graphic, and the announcer just sort of goes, "Oh, Wua gets the ball in the left wing." It's like, yeah, but where did he come from? He wasn't on the field at all previous to now. It was strange.
Well, it's the second time that Awuah has replaced Villa, and both times Jack Harrison ended up getting the armband, but neither time did you get a visual where you could say, "Hey, here's the Harrison moment. Here's where you're seeing that armband getting."
I think ESPN is anti-English. Yeah, that's what it is.
There we go.
See, I know Sam's going to agree with me on this.
Jack Harrison's mom so disappointed.
No, Debbie is angry right now. 2 weeks in a row, Debbie is pissed. It was weird. I think it felt like probably one of those subs that wasn't planned, and in last minute, Vieira goes, just change it, and the Altidore sub happened, and I just don't think anybody caught it because NYCFC's Twitter account didn't even catch it either. It took them 4 minutes to catch up and be like, oh, by the way, there was a sub in the 77th minute. It was the 81st minute when they tweeted that. It must have been a last-minute thing. Game's over. Probably after the penalty, game's over. I'm just going to take Villa off so he doesn't get hurt, sort of thing.
Hey, so this was a question that came out of Facebook from Patrick Rivera again. Is Toronto the deepest team in the league, and is that a concern for NYCFC fans as they look at their subs coming off the bench as Kwame Awuah, Ugo Okoli, and Toronto didn't seem to miss a beat with the subs that they were bringing onto this field?
I think it's not only a concern for NYCFC, but for all clubs in the MLS. I think Toronto had the best starting 11 for the past 2 years now, and they're adding to the squad. They're not losing players, and where they're standing right now, top of the conference, and even though Chicago are close behind them, undefeated at home right now. I think Chicago are the only other team with a better home record.
I think that's right.
Look very strong. They're playing against a team who are third in the Eastern Conference, and it's a 4-0 win. So not only NYCFC fans should be worried, I think Toronto are overwhelming favorites to win it this year.
I think Toronto is the deepest team in the league. 100% agree. I agree with Sam. It's not just a concern for NYCFC. It's something to look at for every team in the Eastern Conference. But to sort of shade it another way, you look at NYCFC today, they already were tapping into their depth for the starting lineup. So the players that got brought on were not their primary substitutes. They were some of their C-level players. I think best 11 versus best 11, I think it's fairly even. I think Toronto does have more depth, though I think if NYCFC is healthy, their depth is fine. But the problem is if you're having to then tap into that depth for your starting lineup, the depth remaining is not very good. And that is where the biggest difference is versus Toronto and the rest of the league.
Yeah, and as the league grows, you're going to need a bigger squad. You're going to need that depth. It's not like it used to be. You can manage, there's games, every 4 days now. Then it never used to be like that. Going into the playoffs, talking about it again, I think they're a little bit closer, NYCFC to Toronto, but they're gonna have to be, ride a little bit of luck and play very well, home and away if they do come up against Toronto.
So let's go back out to the audience.
Yeah, just a comment. Not so much depth is the concern, but I saw a team in Toronto there that was playing extremely disciplined defense, good press, and I don't know if a lot of that was a function of not having a fully healthy NYCFC out there, but they were just baffled trying to find a way to get through that out there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Toronto's a team, they made the MLS Cup last year. They obviously have skilled players. They're well coached, and they're confident. They know what they need to do. They're used to their coach's system. They're used to working as a unit, and I think that's 100% a correct point. You saw that in their defensive organization. NYCFC managed to carve out some chances in the second half, but Toronto still was, really kept them under control. Some of that's NYCFC's lineup, some of that's, other factors, but Toronto's a really good team. For all of the caveats that I could give here, and I'll try to do it because partially that's my job, Toronto's really good. And I think that comment hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, with Bradley coming back, I don't know your opinion on Bradley, but
I love him.
He's taken the ball off, the centre backs, the right back, the left back, distributing from midfield, and Giovinco's just ahead of him, and he's really coming into form right now, Sebastian Giovinco, and I think that's like 5-6 goals in the last 6 or 7 games, and he's hitting a hot streak, and even Altidore scoring goals now for Toronto, and when Bradley plays that role, they're going to be very hard to stop, I feel like, and you could say NYCFC could have used the wings more, but they couldn't even get the ball to play it out into the wings, you know what I mean? And they're not going to beat them in midfield when they're that strong. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, well, and kind of going back to midfield and using the wings more, I think that's where part of playing Pirlo can be a real struggle, is he's constantly sitting on the ball looking for that sort of killer pass. And you look at when Herrera's on the field and the midfield is Morales, Herrera, and Ring, they just play quicker. It's just much quicker. They're constantly just moving the ball. They're much better at getting it out to the wings, just playing it quick and pinging it around. Pirlo will sit and try to find that killer pass, and he can play a pass that nobody else can play, but sometimes it does bog down their attack. So that helps Toronto. It helps any team to an extent defend them, and if he can't find that ball, if he can't find that outlet, it really limits what NYCFC can do. But all that being said, Toronto's really good. They're really good. They're probably the best team in the league. NYCFC are probably at that notch below with like Chicago and a few other teams. Not to say NYCFC can't beat them. I think they definitely can. But if you're missing key players, there isn't much of a chance.
Prior to this game, I've been on the fence about VAR, video assistant refereeing, and its impact. And I think a lot of people coming after this game are going to say, all right, VAR.
Is this the penalty conversation?
This is the
Are we
penalty
ready to go?
conversation.
Okay.
The penalty that gets called on Alexander Callens, it's Josie Altidore doing what I actually tweeted out, Alejandro Bedoya and Josie Altidore, while they were, teammates on the men's national team, got into it because of a Toronto-Philly game. And the fact that, Bedoya basically called Altidore out for being a flopper. And here you go. He plays Callens up. He feels the pressure. He feels the tug, and he just goes down. And, Callens not only gets called for the PK, he gets the yellow card as well.
It wasn't a penalty.
No, yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you want to touch that one first.
It wasn't a penalty. I think it was more of the reaction that he got the yellow card, maybe not the foul. The referee bowled it. He's playing into Altidore. Altidore's what, 6'4", 200 and so pounds, and a little tug like that's not bringing him to the ground. I'm one who's dead against VAR. I hate that it's called VAR. We talked about it on our past podcast. I hate that.
Sounds like something out of a Marvel movie. I think that's the next villain.
I'm not a fan of it, and I hate the fact that it's coming into the next round of games, because the first half of the season, all those decisions play into this second half, and it wasn't a penalty last week, but it's a penalty this week. It wasn't offside this week, but it's offside this week. We saw it in the Confederations Cup. We saw it BMS, and I don't like how they're using the MLS as. Was it the MLS choice to bring it in at this point?
Yeah, they sort of asked to be an innovator, which, I mean, to some extent, you commend them for that because they want to try to be at the forefront of this. It feels like it's the wave that's eventually going to happen across the sport, and MLS is trying to, sort of be at the lead, which is great. I think if you're a league like MLS, it's probably a smart idea to try and be out in front of this stuff. But I do definitely understand the point in second with the changing it mid-season. Whatever your overall opinion of it is, changing it mid-season is very odd.
I mean, part and parcel of football, soccer is to have these discussions on podcasts down the pub. It was like, that wasn't a penalty, like arguing with another fan. That's the beauty about soccer, Maradona's handball in the 1986 World Cup against England, that would, his world-class goal later that game would never have happened if he didn't handball it, if that goal stood. But you can say that about a lot of things. But I feel those types of controversies are just what makes soccer,
Yeah, I think the human element, you'll still have it, right? Because it's still a human being who has to review this and then decide if it's right or not, which we saw in the Confederations Cup. Human beings can still screw things up even on replay. But it, kind of going back to the call today, you're 100% correct. That was a terrible call. At speed, live as it happened, and Brian Dunsett on the broadcast even said it. He goes, "That's not a penalty at all. What kind of call is that? It's just terrible." And a few people pointed out in the crowd while watching the game, and you said it too. Josie Altidore is a well-sized man. Like, he is a strong man. He is big. He's strong. He's a good player. This isn't a knock on his ability. I think Josie Altidore is actually underrated. But he does flop, and he did just sort of kick out his feet and sit down on the ground and earned a call, and it's a terrible call. Not that it changed the outcome, but it's still a terrible call.
That third goal to make it safe. I mean, they were 2-0 up, and they looked very comfortable at that stage. But, a little bit of respect to Giovinco as well to give Altidore the kick as well, because he was on a hat trick at that time. Yeah,
that was surprising. Good penalty by Altidore too. Another one where Sean Johnson had zero chance. I mean, it didn't matter where Sean Johnson leaped. There was no chance of him getting that ball. Top corner. It was perfect as can be. Josie's a really good player, but he needs to, I don't know. Sometimes I think he needs to toughen up a little bit. And, I'm looking at my wife right now, and she said it right as it happened. She goes, "He's big. He's far bigger than him. Why is he going down under that?" It's pretty weak if you're Josie. Like, stand up.
In a span of 15 minutes, because again, the Giovinco free kick came in the 67th minute. You got the Altidore call 8 minutes after that, and then about 5-7 minutes after that, you get the Raheem Edwards goal. Again, this is NYCFC leaving the back post wide open. Whether it be Jack Harrison or Ethan White, we were talking about trying to figure out who's responsible for covering Edwards as he comes up. But, you're going from thinking this is a game where NYCFC can maybe steal a point to thinking, wow, this is an embarrassment.
Yeah, it felt like an NYCFC team that had shut down a little bit. I mean, granted, I'd shut down watching the game, so I don't know if I totally blame them, but they shut down. I don't know if it's Harrison's fault. I don't know what Ethan White's fault. I don't know if they're trying to play the offside, trying to, play him offsides there. I just don't, you watch it a few times, and I'm still not 100% positive what went wrong. It looked disjointed is probably the best word to describe it. And maybe that's the problem. It just seemed like a team that wasn't on the same page, and partially it might have just been emotions and frustration, and it sort of shut off.
Well, let's not forget, Patrick Vieira basically shut the team off. He took out David Villa when Altidore was taking that PK. So that substitution basically took place at the same time. So you're talking about the last 15 minutes without Pirlo, without Villa on the field.
Well, that's partially a negative and partially a positive. Pirlo's not on the field, but no, I get it, right? You don't want Villa to get hurt. It's not worth. The game's over. You do want to save him. It's totally logical. And we did earn a penalty after that that we couldn't do anything with either.
Did you want to talk about that?
Do I want to? No. Should I? Probably.
Who would you have had take that penalty kick?
I'll go with John again.
That's 2 votes for me today.
I mean, I think Maxi's got he's probably got the best experience on the field. Quite honestly, I would have had Alex Ring take it just to try to get him, on the score sheet.
I would have Ugo Coley take it. Why not? He's your number 9 on the field right there. Why not? Let him go. At that point, what does it matter, right? Though Alex Ring could take it. I give it to Alexander Callens, who used to be a striker when he played as a youth. I don't honestly whatever.
I guess the only reason why it matters is because Morales, skied it and went over the bar, and I guess from an emotional standpoint, we all said it in the bar. That was typical of this game. It was a perfect moment to say, yeah, that's just this day.
Yeah, realistically, if I had a choice, jokes aside, Villa's not on the field, I would let Harrison take the penalty. That would be my choice.
So we can just wrap up now.
So, but, in the end, it just felt like the, apropos sort of moment to describe the match for NYCFC. What are you going to do? It happens.
Yeah. So, Sam, did you tell us what the name of your podcast was?
No, I didn't. And I was thinking in my head, the other 2 guys that couldn't be here today, they were going to meet you. They were like, make sure you plug the podcast.
Oh, I was going to make sure to ask you. Don't worry.
It's called The Third Touch. We have a Twitter account at The Third Touch. I think we have 32 or 33 episodes out right now. We do a weekly recording. We're just getting back into it, just because summer's really hectic. But we focus on the Premier League. We focus on the Gold Cup, the MLS.
You don't talk Liverpool at all, right?
Why wouldn't you? Because they're really good. You should talk them all the time.
We do, but we don't want to be. There's a lot of Premier League podcasts out there, but we kind of keep it funny. One of the guys has an MLS section, which is pretty funny. We break that down. The Gold Cup we covered a lot about in our past episode. We talked about the VAR system last week. But it's really fun to do. And 3 guys to get content out each week is kind of tough because Game of Thrones is back on now and people are watching now. But it's a good humorous. Yeah, I like it. So, but it's called The Third Touch. So subscribe.
The Third Touch, what Josie Altidore rarely gets to because his second touch is so bad.
Well, it's based off this English striker. I don't know if you probably remember him, Emil Heskey.
Yeah, oh God, yes.
He's got a ton of England caps, and my friend was a Liverpool fan. He was like, he has the best third touch in the Premier League. I'm like, yeah, of course he does. But it kind of evolved from that.
Well, I appreciate the hospitality. It's been a great time up here in Wolf's Beer Garden. John, final thoughts on the game? Or looking forward to Sunday?
I am looking forward to Sunday. I'm going to ignore this game and pretend it didn't happen. And I know I have to talk about this tomorrow night when we record our actual podcast for the week, and I'm going to have no new thoughts, and I'm going to pretend that it didn't occur. I am looking forward to Sunday. I have not been to Yankee Stadium in a few months for one of their games, just due to scheduling and families and all that stuff. So this will be something I've had on the calendar, and it should be good. And I do think we have a good opportunity, and I think we'll bounce back. I think we've shown to be a team that can bounce back. But the game today stunk. The hospitality, as always, though, at Wolf's Beer Garden is fantastic. I am a little biased, but Sam's right. Number 2 soccer bar, according to SiriusXM FC. Really, I don't know who's number 1, but I can't believe that they're better than this place. It is really wonderful here. I truly do love it here, and I know a lot of people do too. And we truly do appreciate it. And let's just hope the next time we do this, NYCFC actually get a goal. Forget a victory, just a goal.
Yeah, we go down next week as well. And we'll probably do a bus trip again soon. Everyone's bugging me. They had a blast down to the Seattle game.
Yeah, you went to that Seattle Monsoon game for the bus trip.
Oh, it was a beautiful day up here, and it was just a downpour down there. But it was good. People are bugging me to do it again. So when NYCFC make the playoffs, we'll get together, we'll pick the game and go down again.
Something to look forward to, everybody. Whoever's in the Capital District vicinity, something to look forward to. NYCFC when they make the playoffs, maybe a bus trip. Certainly, you should just come down to Wolf's Beer Garden. They have multiple locations in the Capital District area. The Albany one is the one we're in. This is the original, and they can't be beat, in my opinion. So Sam, thanks again for everything. The Third Touch, so check out his podcast. They have a Twitter account. You can find them. Think of the Josie Altidore joke that I made, or Emil Heskey. That's if you're a Liverpool fan, you know that one for sure. And definitely check out Sam. And thanks a ton, Sam. We really, truly appreciate this.
I'll pay you later. Thank you.
And thanks to the crowd that came out and watched the game with us. Not the result NYCFC fans wanted, but nonetheless, it beats going to work, right? Guys, that's it for us. Thanks again so much to Wolf's Beer Garden. Let's go out there and support this team.
Let's go New York City and New York State.
Thanks, guys.
Hold that slide bar down.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.